Hi, this is Eva for Once Upon a Timeline. Looks like only a few people are in so far. Autumn Nichols and maybe Rich B, although that was a while ago, so I don't know if he's still there. Anyway, so looks like I'm starting without most of you guys today. Okay, Kay is in. Hello, Kay. Okay, so Shari D is in. Anybody else coming? All right, so this one I just saw earlier today. It's a weird little GIF. Ah, Rich B, you are still there. So this is a little thing I saw in Retcon, and it is a seal that takes a octopus and throws it at this guy. So I guess seals use tools now. It looks pretty peeved, but it definitely looks like something a human would do. I mean, if this seal is eating this octopus, then why did he throw it at that dude? I mean, you wouldn't. It seems clear that that seal pitched that thing at that dude's head, which is pretty bizarre to me. So anyway, animals continue to get more and more complicated in human life. Anyway, yeah, it is a funny video. I agree with you. That guy looks pissed, man. Do not mess with these seals, although I guess you're going to be glad it's just an octopus. But really, I mean, if he hunted that octopus, that's a lot of food to just throw at some dude. So that's just weird. He doesn't really come back for it. He doesn't look like he is doing it as a favor. So, don't know. Anyway, I got a new small computer, so no more incessant crashing. But I just realized that I really need to set it so that it doesn't go dark in 2 minutes. All right, so okay, seal slap. That was the first one. This one is a really weird one. Who came up with this one? Woodpecker bird mimics snake. This is from Jay Emblin, frequent commenter on my channel. Autumn Nicole said, I saw that link today, but I didn't check it out. Yes, I just saw it just like in a couple hours ago. I saw that one. Yeah, I think one of the Reddit links. Got to enjoy those Reddit links. Yeah, he got slapped by it. It looks like the seal just like flung it right at his face. So by next week, seals will be making swords. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, but way back when, well, I guess not that long ago, but 10 or 15 years ago, they used to say that only humans made tools, and that was one of the things that separated humans from animals. And then, right around that time, they discovered that I think it was orangutans or it was gorillas, I think it was orangs, used little sticks to get termites out of mounds and then eat the termites. And so then they said, oh, it was a big deal that another kind of animal used tools. But then you kind of noticed that there was a few other animals that did it. But now, like, every animal under the sun practically does it. So, all right. So let me just straighten this out a little bit here. Up at 2 a.m., work dove. Yeah, I actually was so sleepy today, so I took a nap. So now I feel pretty refreshed. Okay. All right, where am I? All right, so here's this Eurasian wrynecks. They supposedly, when they're threatened, they curl their neck around. And this is another one of those really weird videos. This thing looks weird. This woodpecker doesn't peck wood. They nest in holes. And supposedly this thing is the origin of the word jinx, Jinxk, because supposedly they would say that these birds were putting a jinx on somebody or something in the old times. So here is this very weird video. So this is what this bird does. Supposedly it's supposed to be mimicking a rattlesnake or something to try to scare off whatever. The modern word jinx comes from this bird's historical name, jinx bird. Anyway, pretty weird. It looks like it should have broken something too when it does that. I mean, Just got notification 4 minutes ago. Well, that's why everybody was late then. I put it up about an hour and a bit ago, so maybe I need to put it up a little sooner. But I was taking a nap, so that kind of interfered with the plan. All right. All right, this one comes from... Who came up with this one? This is from Stand Up for Freedom, another commenter on my channel who gets a lot of them. So apparently now in this timeline, blowing smoke up your you-know-what was actually something they actually did to people as a medication in the 17th century. So you see that weird image there? So there, I've seen a lot of these like weird old medical strategies, and this was never in there before, ever. By the late 1700s, blowing smoke had become a regular applied medical procedure used to revive people thought to be nearly deceased, usually drowning victims. The process was so common, in fact, that several major waterways kept the instrument, consisting of a bellows and flexible tube, nearby in case of such emergencies. The tobacco smoke was believed to increase the heart rate of the victim and encourage respiratory functions, as well as dry out the insides of the waterlogged individual, making this method of delivery more preferred than breathing air directly into the lungs via mouth. I don't know what to say about that, but that's just weird. Yeah, it was a saying for when it was a false tale, exactly. But apparently now it's based on a real event. I've never heard that before. I mean, obviously it could have been something I just didn't know about. But like I said, I've seen many of these stories of the old medical procedures. And I don't know where this one suddenly showed up from. But, I mean, it's supposedly from 2017. Updated 2018, but I don't know. I agree. It's just, there's so many weird things like this. And again, it's sort of like it's almost ridiculous because some kind of ridiculous statement will suddenly become true. And actually, there's another one of those later on in this episode, too. Okay. This one was suggested by Vault Team 6. I'm pretty sure that, yeah, Vault Team 6 suggested I check out nuchal ligament. Yeah, I agree. I hadn't heard of that. And when I looked into it, there are some additional issues because, okay, so there's basically now this ligament on the back of your head. One thing that's interesting about nuchal ligament is it attaches, sits on the median plane. It attaches to external occipital protuberance. And that is that weird little protuberance that a lot of people noticed had developed on the back of the head back here. And that is an ME for many. And when it first showed up, it was called occipital bun, and it was only on a few people. And they said, oh, just certain people have it depending on your genetics and heritage. But now it seems like it's pretty much something that everybody has, and just some people have it more or less. So that one is as an ME for many, including myself, the external occipital protuberance. And then it attaches down onto the spine part of the 7th vertebrae down here. And then these spines that are on the vertebrae are also MEs for many. So I guess it's not really surprising that there's multiple purposes for these spines. So yeah, I mean, nuchal ligament, I wasn't 100% sure that it wasn't there before, but considering that it attaches to 2 other MEs, I think it's quite likely that it is, and I had never heard of it. Also, I've already heard other people bring this up, but there is this other supraspinous ligament, which is another ligament that goes all the way down the back. And I do not remember there being a ligament on the spine. There were muscles, certainly, that would hold the spine in place, but it seems like we're growing a lot more ligaments now, and some of these nubs and weird things that are growing on the bones are the attachment places for those. So I don't know what to say about it, but weird. People talking about repeating numbers. Yeah, I don't really do the repeating numbers thing. I think because I don't really believe it means anything, and I will tell you why. I mean, I'm not saying that it can't, but um, when I was in college, I figured out that I could wake up a few seconds or a minute before the alarm went off. And considering I would get up at a different time every day, depending on when work started, when school started, those things changed every day of the week, and even week by week they changed. So it wasn't like I got used to getting up at a certain time. I knew what some part of my brain, I realized, knew exactly what time it was, and I had a really obnoxious alarm, and I would wake up right before it so I could turn it off so I wouldn't have to hear that. So then over time, I just realized I could just tell myself to wake up. I didn't need the alarm. And to this day, I don't generally use one, although sometimes I will set one if something is really important. But I'll wake up before I need to. So what that taught me, though, was basically if I go to bed at 10 p.m. and I close my eyes, then my brain, even though I haven't opened my eyes and looked at the clock, my brain knows exactly what time it is 8 hours later or 6 hours or whatever hours later. My brain knows. So that to me means that my brain, some part of my mind, always knows what time it is. So I just don't think it's chance that you look over at the clock and it's 11:11. I think some part of your mind knows exactly what time it is, and you suddenly get the idea to look over there. And maybe if that gives you a certain feeling that's positive or interesting or good for you, then I think you can basically at any time look over and know exactly what time it is in advance. So that's why it doesn't mean anything to me if I looked over and saw 11:11, because it would just mean to me that, yes, my mind knows what time it is, and I have chosen to look when it is 11:11. So that's why, and because I don't believe in it, I don't believe it's a special thing other than what I already know I can do. I think that might be why I just don't do the whole time noticing numbers thing. I mean, it just, because if I did, it wouldn't mean anything to me. It would just be like, yes, well, I know what time it is. So I don't know. So that's a pretty long storyline for that spiel. But I think when you're interested in something and attracted to it, you get more of it. And to me, it does not mean a lot to me. I mean, what really is interesting is that I always know what time it is. And I think that's true of everybody. I don't think that's just me. And that is really something to think about. Yeah, and weirdly, deja vu, that's another one. I've never gotten deja vu. I don't know why. I'm just weird that way, I guess. Yeah, I took the nap because, lately I've been actually going to bed at a decent time instead of midnight or 1. And then I wake up early, and I've gotten in that habit. So today, when I had to suddenly stay up till 2 a.m. again, I wasn't going to make it, I don't think. I wonder if Rumpelstiltskin is real. I wouldn't be shocked if we found out that it was based on some real thing or something. Let's see. Rumpel. I'm not good at the spelling of this one. Still skin is real. Let's just check. Because when somebody says something like that, all right, it does not look like it's real yet. Okay, the plot, variants. All right, no indications that it's based on a real life story yet. All right, you never can tell these days, All right. Okay, so back to that. Nuchal ligament. All right, so tree kangaroo. This one showed up maybe a year or two ago, but what's interesting now is there's a bunch of them. When tree kangaroo first showed, there was just one, but now we have all these species. Look at this guy. Look at his tail. It's getting longer and longer. It's got another, I mean, it used to be about that long. It's gone another, what, 25, 35% longer now. This one, I haven't seen this species until just recently with these, the more spots on the tail. That is a very neat looking animal there. See if it'll get a little bit bigger. So, yeah, a whole bunch of kinds of these. Did not have tree kangaroos in my original timeline, and they are a very cool looking animal. See if we can, I'm just going to click on a few of them randomly. Now, some of these you can't really find very good images of them, but see if I can find this one. This one looks interesting. Bennett's tree kangaroo. I haven't even tested this yet, so I don't know if we'll find an image of it or not. Images. Okay. So, yeah, interesting. I suspect that we'll see these continue to get weirder and weirder. So, yes, they're there. See, I haven't seen this one with a stripe on its back here. This one's the one I've been seeing a lot of lately with these weird spots. I think that's the one, black tree kangaroo. So for a while there was just tree kangaroo. That was it. It was kind of a lot like this one, but it's getting more speckly now and stuff. Beautiful animals. All right, let's see. What did I have planned? So the one thing about these was new. Let's see if I can remember what it was. Aha. And this one came from somebody. Oh, no, wait, did not. I think that was just one I found. So the story, this was caught my eye, is rare tree kangaroo reappears after vanishing for 90 years. Of course, there were no tree kangaroos in my timeline, but apparently the Wandi Woi tree kangaroo is so rare and elusive that it disappeared for nearly a century and was assumed to be extinct. That's not it. Let's see if I can get down here to the image. So you don't have a very good image of it. It looks a lot like a koala to me. You don't see the tail. There's not many images of it, but this one's going to be interesting. I suspect that, like a lot of creatures, they will be, it's new right now, and then in a year it will not be new anymore. It'll have been here a long time. So keep an eye on this one, and I think we'll see more and more divergence between these. So basically there was just one a couple years ago. Now there's like 15 or so of these guys. So it's just amazing how quickly they're developing. That thing reminds me of the magical creature on old Popeye cartoons. I don't think I remember what the magical creature on the Popeye cartoons are. See what that is. Eugene the Jeep is a character in Popeye comic strips. Oh, this thing? Popeye Jeep is Jeep. Okay. A mysterious animal with magical or supernatural abilities. Dang, I'm not sure I even remember that thing, but yeah. Huh. Yeah, it is weird. The tail isn't long enough, but otherwise. Huh. Interesting. Okay. Does anyone get this pinching in the side of the neck if you cough with your head turned, like something gets stuck for a second? No one ever knows what I'm talking about, even my doctor. Let's see. If you cough with your head turned. Okay. One thing that we did talk about starting about a year ago is a lot of cracklies when you turn your neck. So there is a bunch of weird cracklies. It kind of started suddenly. I mean, my neck actually doesn't hurt at all. It feels like it's really in good condition. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I mean, there's the old age spiel, but it just was kind of a sudden onset for a lot of us about a year ago. And that's about as close as I can say. That crack, it's still in there. It doesn't feel bad. It's just kind of like the little crunchy noises or something. So it might be something like that you're getting. He told me not to cough with my neck turned then. Yeah, the doctors are so helpful. I mean, if it just sounds weird but it doesn't hurt or anything, it might not be worth worrying about too much though. If we get wings, we will need fashion designers to accommodate them. Well, you know, there's so many weird birth defect things now. So who the heck knows? Extra fingers seems to be a big thing for this timeline. That was just super, super rare in my old timeline, like almost unheard of. Now the storyline is it's pretty common, but everybody just has them chopped off at childhood, so you didn't know. Okay, so here's another one, and this one is from somewhere in here. All right, who came up with this one? Okay. The freshwater jellyfish was by STS Aquatic, who is also Teresa Tatham. Both of those two brought up the Missouri freshwater jellyfish. This is just a basic jellyfish one here. So I don't remember any freshwater jellyfish. They were saltwater things. Then, it was about 6 months ago, there was like one lake had these rare jellyfish, and they were protecting the lake. I can't remember which country that was in, but it was nowhere near here. But now apparently these freshwater jellyfish are all over the friggin' place. And it's interesting. Their life cycle is interesting. So sea sour bee is this kind here. And they're, an inch long only. I bet you we'll get longer ones, though. But for now, they're an inch long. Global distribution, found in countries on almost every continent and nearly every state in the United States. No reports yet from Montana, Wyoming, North Dakota, South Dakota, Alaska, or Hawaii. And the medusa. Okay, so here's what's weird about them: that they have a weird life cycle where they have this polyp form, and they stay underneath for the polyp form, and the polyp form can asexually reproduce, so it can basically bud off and split that way, and so it can stay in polyp form but still reproduce. That's the weird part there, because I do remember the polyp form, but I don't remember that was the immature form, and they could not reproduce in my old timeline. But in this timeline, they can reproduce in that form. So they're saying that they can just stay in that form year after year after year, and then every now and then, when things are just right, they'll form the medusa form, and the medusa form is the form that we associate with jellyfish. So the storyline then is that they could be in the lake for years and years and decades, and nobody knows about it, and then suddenly they go into medusa form and everybody sees them. So that's kind of convenient. So it's a pretty good excuse for them to suddenly show up in a lake. The medusa's appearance is sporadic and unpredictable from year to year. It is not uncommon for a sea sour bee to appear in a body of water where it had never been documented before, and in very large numbers, and its appearance may even be reported on the local news. So now you have an excuse if they suddenly show up in your local lakes and you swear that you never heard of them. Well, that's why is the storyline now. So very, very interesting. And they're also saying that this is another thing I have not heard of when it comes to jellyfish. Okay, so tiny polyp, so when they're in polyp form, lives in colonies attached to underwater vegetation, rocks or tree stumps, feeding and asexually reproducing during spring and summer. Only some of these offspring are sexually reproducing medusa, so maybe there won't be any. Fertilized eggs develop into small ciliated larvae called planula. That is assuming they're going the medusa stage. The planula then settle to the bottom and develop into polyps. However, the majority of sea sours bee population existing in the United States are either all male or all female, so there's no sexual reproduction in those populations. So again, we have this asexual reproduction thing that a lot of the Mandela creatures have. During the cold winter months, this is a new one for me, polyps contract and enter dormancy as resting bodies called podocysts. It is believed that podocysts are transported by aquatic plants or animals or to other bodies of water. Once conditions become favorable, they develop into polyps again. So they have this sort of dormancy phase called podocysts. Since these things are all over the world, you have to wonder how in the heck they get transported. This is kind of trying to excuse it, but I mean, still you would have to pick up some of the plants and move them to a different lake, and it just doesn't seem like super likely that would happen much, but I've wondered about that. I mean, how do fish get into all the lakes? Some lakes are downstream from others, but how did the ones... You just would wonder. There should be lakes that never got any fish, but there never is. Somehow they get into every lake. So I've wondered about that for a long time. But now with the Mandela effect, I think that might explain it. I mean, things can just show up, basically. So anyway, there you go. Freshwater fish. Let's look at these freshwater jellies. Missouri freshwater. I'm thinking maybe it was on, it went viral or something, these Missouri jellyfish, because all of a sudden everybody's talking about them. They got multiple comments on them. The Show Me State has jellyfish. Swimmers and skiers need not be alarmed, however, although the tentacles of freshwater jellyfish are armed with stinging cells. Missouri's freshwater jellyfish are only about the size of a quarter and pose no threat to people. All right, they're talking about the asexual budding and stuff. Anyway, so Missouri has them, but apparently all the states have them just about, except for a few. This is supposed to have been published in 2000. No, I don't think so, because when I first heard of this freshwater jellies, that was just one lake in some faraway country. So apparently there's a bunch of other kinds, so it's not just that one sour bee one. There's like one in Japan. Now, weirdly, I couldn't really find a listing of all the species. There's probably one out there somewhere. I just didn't dig for it. But on the occurrence of freshwater jellyfish in Japan, there's some other kinds in Japan. Astrophyta japonica and C. isiana. I didn't find much information on those. They might be rather new. There's just basically this one very dry article without much information on it. So basically they're calling them invasive, but I don't know. They're showing up everywhere, and they didn't exist before, so it's hard for me to accept them as invasive. I think they're just Mandelas. There's a weird pressure that happens when it's pinched. There's a lot of weird nerves and stuff that run in there. And I do remember something about one nerve can sometimes get pinched on the over by the collarbone. See if I can remember that. All right, I'm not finding the exact info now, but you might want to look into that about, there was, and I don't even know it's still in this timeline, but there was something about, in some people, there's a nerve that goes too close to, or it's pinched into some of the bones in here, and sometimes can cause either minor or major pain or something. So it wasn't anything that was really serious, but if it hurt, obviously it would. So maybe you just have a really mild case of that. I would just kind of check into it. Maybe there's some exercises you could do. Sometimes the general practitioners just really don't know much about anything, and they're going to be reluctant to give you a referral if it doesn't seem to be bothering you. And again, if it's not really bothering you and it's not getting worse. If you Google it, it will end up thinking you have neck cancer. Well, it sounds to me more like you have maybe a nerve that goes really close to certain bones. So that nerve just gets a little pinch. I mean, I'm not a doctor, obviously, and your doctor doesn't seem to think it's a big deal, but Spock on Star Trek. Yeah, just wait. I bet you, well, I won't bet, but I would not be surprised if something like the Vulcan neck pinch becomes real. I'm going to just check it for funsies here. I've looked at this before, believe it or not, if there was anything like that, because sometimes you hear stories about martial arts where they hit certain areas and the person just blacks out. And so I wanted to find those areas, but I could never find it on the internet. Could the Vulcan nerve pinch really work? If the nerve pinch was real, UFC fights would be a lot shorter. Yeah, well, that's a good point. Can you knock someone out with pressure points? That was what I was curious about. Ryukyu Kempo. You will discover the body is full of pressure points that can be exploited to immobilize, knock out, or even kill a person. There are 2 points that correspond to the position of the fingers in the nerve pinch. The touch of death, known in Cantonese as dim mak, and the Japanese kyushu jitsu, claim that chi or energy flow. Okay, I haven't really, I've heard these stories, and these are the same stories I've heard before, but I have never seen it done. So, the evidence is still weak, but yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems like the groundwork is set for this to be real. Okay, so jellyfish are sold now as pets. Oh, interesting. I've seen them at the zoos. It seemed like they were hard to take care of. I know I mentioned melatonin. Yeah, you know, a lot of general practitioners, I mean, basically, if you don't seem like you're sick, then I really suggest people do their own research. I mean, these doctors, they have so much information they're supposed to keep in their heads, and where you can spend 20 hours researching your one specific problem, they are not going to be able to do that. So, my arms fall asleep very easy when I sleep. I had that for a number of years, and it scared me. And then it went away. So I don't know what to say about that one. All right, so this one, it looks like I'm missing some of my, oh, that's weird. This one actually came from Redcon, these lemurs. It was, what was it, Sabine, and she had a bunch of numbers on her name, but this was a poster from Redcon that was talking about the flying lemur. Now, I saw the lemur about a year or two ago, but there was only one kind of flying lemur at that time, and it was, it's weird. It's like some of my tabs are gone. I don't know if I deleted them when I wasn't looking or what. Okay, so the lemur that I saw originally was this one, this spotted one. The colugo, they called it, flying lemur. And it's not really a lemur, so it's kind of interesting. This thing shows up and it's already got a name of something that it's not. But supposedly these are related to primates, so the name is not that far off. So I saw this spotted one, and they just called it the colugo. I thought it was colugo, but right here it's a coluga. I'm pretty sure it was colugo. And there was just this one. But now we have a bunch of other kinds. This one, I can't figure out what this is. Indonesia, but there's only supposed to be a couple of kinds. And the one in the Philippines is this is the new one for me. Weird looking things. They have more and more fleshiness to them each time I look at them. So this is the flying lemur. I guess they glide, but they can glide for hundreds of feet. And now we see these images of like the babies hanging in there too. So there just seems there's a lot more variation suddenly on these. Look at that thing. That's just weird. So they hang like bats, like furry bats. So this one with a spot on its head, I don't remember any of them having a big spot on their head. So suddenly there's a ton of variation, and they have different names now. They used to be just colugo. And this one also caught my attention. Two new flying lemur species. Okay, so colugos soar over long distances up to 450 feet. It's 136 meters from treetop to treetop. Closest living relatives to primates. Before now, scientists recognized just two colugo species. Okay, yeah, there's the colugo word. The Sunda colugo and the Philippine colugo. All right, so to me, there was just one, and it was the colugo. Now we have a Sunda colugo and a Philippine colugo. This Philippine colugo is apparently the one that I am seeing now as newer. But the researchers analyzed genetic material from the Sunda colugos and determined the differences were great enough to suggest the colugos living on each island had evolved into distinct species. So now they're split them into more species. So two species have shown, and now they're saying officially that they're splitting them. I think what you'll see is that over time, those splits will diverge from each other more and more, and just in a few months too. So we're seeing a lot more real interesting images of these colugos now too. When I first saw them, there was just a few images. You really couldn't find much. And if you're looking at that one, it's not real. That one, I looked at that one. That one is not a real creature. Pretty much there was a few like this. That was all that I would see. You couldn't see them flying. You couldn't see them being held. You couldn't see their babies. Now suddenly there's a whole bunch of images of them. See, there was nothing like that one. So many different colors. So there's the one I saw, but I had not seen that one. There's so many color variations now on these. Okay, so anyway, that's the flying lemurs one. All right, let's get back to this one now. Okay, this one's really weird. Now, last I checked, it was 7 years old, was the youngest that anyone ever gave birth. And that wasn't that long ago. But now we have Lina Medina. She gave birth when she was 5 years old via cesarean. It was a successful birth, and the child grew up, and it was fine. They're saying she was able to give birth this young to precocious puberty is the word they're using for it. And it's just a term for they don't know why, but your puberty came early. Well, that's really freaking early. So anyways, they don't talk about who the father is and stuff, but so now they're saying originally it was supposedly a hoax, but then there's a lot of documentation and doctors' reports and blah, blah, blah. 1939, so this is not a new thing. Let's see if I can find some images of her actually. Let's see. Yep, I think that's one. Yep, that's an image of her. I just don't think you could even carry one to term that young before. It just wouldn't happen. So, I mean, she was supposedly raised for a long time that her child was raised to think they were brother and sister instead of. But anyway, just weird. 5 years old. That's I think this one shows a lot of images of her. That's her and her son. Let's see, there she is. Just weird. 5 years old. No, I mean I don't know. Can it possibly get any younger than that? I mean, she basically had to become pregnant when she was 4 years old. Yep, it was, what's the name of this woman again? Linda Medina. Oh, Lina. It's Lina. It should be Lina. Lina Medina. Pretty sure that's the correct spelling. Lina Medina. Lina. So you can look it up yourself, but there's another image of her with her son. I mean, people are becoming mature faster, I think, in this timeline, and a lot of the kids are really tall. I used to chalk that up to some kind of hormones in the food, but I think now it's probably ME is my guess. So anyway, yeah, who gets their time of the month that young? They've got this word now. They're calling it precocious puberty. And so you just have puberty real early. And see, this was 1933. So this was long before all the hormones and crap in the food, too. So last I checked, it was 7 years old was the youngest. I thought that was pretty extreme. But now we have 5. Okay. Got that one. All right, this one's kind of another. I think I covered the last time the giant wave of what was it? It was the giant wave of maple syrup. Now we have the London beer flood of 1814, the 15-foot wave of beer that flooded London in 1840. So apparently now there was a giant beer flood. I've not heard of that. And again, this is another one I can't say for sure, but there's so many of these weird things now. Terrible disaster claimed the lives of 8 people in St. Giles. A bizarre industrial accident resulted in the release of a beer tsunami onto the streets around Tottenham Court Road. So supposedly they had a big Beer tank snapped. The whole tank ruptured, releasing hot fermenting ale with such force that the back wall of the brewery collapsed. The force also blasted open several more vats, adding their contents to the flood, which now burst forth onto the street. More than 320,000 gallons of beer was released into the area. This was St. Giles Rookery. Now, the reason I don't think we had many stories of this before is I don't believe that we had that kind of industrial level storage capacity in 1814 in my old timeline. So the amount of material that they were able to store in one place, I suspect, and this is purely a guesswork on my part. Might be wrong on that, but we do have a lot of tech before its time. So I'm really reaching on this one, and I can't swear to it, but I wonder if that's what it is. All right, so that one was by Devor Schwartz. Came up with the beer flood. So good find on the beer flood. All right. So now the question is, when were the first jetpacks invented? I remember these in like the 70s was kind of a new thing, but apparently in this timeline, they started them in the late 40s, I think it was, and by 56, they had a pretty good functioning jetpack. And this is the dude who's going to fly it. Because what I remember is this being a big thing in the movies, because it was a new thing. So once they had heard about this, they were, oh yeah, the wave of the future, people get around using jetpacks. But if it was from the 50s, it wouldn't be a new big deal thing at all. So I'm suspicious about that one. And that is from Devor Schwartz again, another commenter on the channel. Okay. This is another one from Devor Schwartz. 4 wise monkeys. I do not remember there being 4 wise monkeys. I remember there being 3 wise monkeys. But apparently now sometimes there's a 4th one. So I remember see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. But now they have a 4th that's do no evil. And he's either shown crossing his arms or covering his private parts. So that's interesting. I have not heard of there being a 4th. And I guess this 4th one is more salacious. So that kind of fits in with the timeline, I think. 4 wise monkeys Buddhist principle. So there he is. This guy is a little bit different than the other 3. That's all I have to say. They still also have 3 wise monkeys is also a version. So that one's not gone. I'm really suspicious about this 4th monkey here. Have you all looked at World War I and World War II footage, David? Yes. That one's an interesting one for me because they were coming out with the World War II footage, and everybody's talking about tech back in time. And so I told myself, the minute I see World War I footage, I'm going to know that is a new shift. And then sure enough, about 4 months ago or so, World War I footage suddenly showed up for me. And I had been watching because there had been so much talk about the video going back in time. So right when the World War I footage, I saw it, and I know it had only been there, a few weeks or less. I jumped on YouTube and I checked on Google to see if anybody covered it yet on YouTube. And I was thinking when I did the search that maybe somebody covered it the week before or yesterday or 3 days ago. But what I found was somebody had covered it a year earlier. So it definitely freaked me out. That person obviously got to the timeline before I did. So shifts happen at different times is all I can say. And that is a really clear one because I was really watching for World War I video, and I would periodically look for World War I video. So when I saw it, I'm like, score, I got it. And nope, I was late to the party on that one. And that's why I didn't do a video on it. The Atlantic Wall is a big-time war difference. Yes. And the location of Berlin and how the Berlin Wall was. In my timeline, you could not pass through the Berlin Wall. If anybody stepped a toe over that wall, they were shot. There was only one person who ever managed to pass the wall without being shot. All the others were killed. There was all this bunkers with guards and towers with guns all along. Well, in this timeline, they had a checkpoint, and people could drive through the checkpoint. I about flipped a gizzard when I saw that. Flipped a gizzard. So yeah, the war was very different here. And of course, the geology is so different now in Europe, so it has to be different. A lot of black and white stuff I see on TV seems way too clear. Yes. And a lot of things that used to be black and white are color. The, what's that assassination footage? What is it called? The ones with the 6 people in the car instead of 4. That one used to be a black and white video for me. Then for a while they said it had been recently colorized. And that was the storyline. Oh, they colorized it and improved it. So if you remembered it black and white, it's because you remembered the pre-colorized version. Now it's always been color. So you can see how the storyline jumps. Checkpoint, that's totally different. Yep. Checkpoint Charlie. I about laughed my head off. Checkpoint Charlie. All right. I guess there's a couple of them, but Checkpoint Charlie was the name given by the Western Allies to the best-known Berlin Wall crossing point between East Berlin and West Berlin. And people just drive through. Checkpoint Charlie became a symbol of the Cold War, representing separation of East and West. Soviet and American tanks briefly faced each other at the location during the Berlin Crisis of 1961. Okay, never heard of that. Berlin Crisis of 1961. I guess it's still there. All right, so you are leaving the American sector. All right, let's see if we can see an image of this thing. Find some old video. I'm looking for some old images of it. Okay, here. I think that's one. It doesn't really say the name. Yeah, here's that sign. You are now leaving. So there was Checkpoint Charlie. And you could, if you were from the Allied side, you could go back and forth as long as you had your papers. And there was a number of people who were smuggled out that way. So people would just drive back and forth through here. Checkpoint Charlie, there it is. That must be that Berlin Crisis thing. So anyway, yes, bunch of checkpoints. And this was just one of numerous checkpoints. Yeah, you couldn't go through in my timeline. You could not put one little putty paw over that line and you would be shot. You would be shot on sight. There was no questioning. Anybody who was attempting to get across the wall on the other side would immediately be shot, going either way. Although, generally speaking, people are trying to leave to the Allied side. I never heard of anybody trying to get in. The Keokuk Money, didn't they fly food into the capital at one point and drop it because they couldn't go over the I did not have that food drop thing. It was not in my timeline. There wouldn't have been a big deal about bringing the wall down if there was a checkpoint. I guess it can still be really symbolic, and people from the Russian side couldn't just go over and visit their relatives. I don't think they got permission to go out. If I remember correctly, last I checked, the Allied side could go in and out, but the people on the Russian side couldn't. So if you missed your relatives on the Allied side, they could come visit you. That's last I checked. I mean, this stuff might keep changing, so you really got to watch. All right, let's see. Where are we? Okay, this one is from Stand Up for Freedom. I did see this one a few weeks ago, but I had not heard of it before. Never heard of it. I'm big into trees, and I've never seen this. Obviously, it could be just something I've never seen, but basically this tree grew on top of another tree. Double tree of Kazorzo. They show it at different timelines. It looks like they're whacking the hell out of this lower one, so that this upper one, it's in Italy. Let me go visit it. That's why that bottom tree looks like crap, because they're hacking it back really bad. This one, it's grown out, but it looks like a lot of them. It looks like they're just cutting these branches viciously on the bottom here. That's why it looks so bad. There it is. Okay. I was hoping I could see what kind they were. What the heck? Kungar Ice Cave? I might have to click on that. Hopefully I don't get a bunch of viruses. Karst Cave located in the Urals. Snow melt dripping through the porous rocks has frozen in the cold interior of the cave to turn into ice stalactites that hang from the ceiling in complete unpredictable forms. Huh, no, I have not heard of that one. Diamond Grotto. That's interesting. So the reason it kind of confuses me is generally if it's that cold, then you would not get a bunch of dripping. So there probably has to be a pretty complicated storyline about how the ice here is frozen but yet dripping enough to make all that. Very nice. Maybe there's a... The thing is, if it defrosts on the top, then it can drip, but then it still has to stay cold enough down here that the drips freeze. That's why it's kind of complicated in mind how this would form. I've certainly never heard of it. There's a lot of beautiful, beautiful caves now. Even the ice formations themselves are to a level that... we are not receiving data from your encoder. Huh, that's weird. No data. Okay, now I'm just at bad. All right, so just for a brief while. Okay, so you guys might be experiencing buffering, so I apologize if that's the case. All right, anyway, so there you go. Two more weird ones. So Double Tree of Casorso was from Stand Up for Freedom, commentor. The Four Wise Monkeys were from Devor Schwartz. All right, this one. Legs and hands. Okay, this one's kind of gross, but dog's lick leads to amputation of man's legs and hands. So basically saying that he got this septic infection in his blood due to, see if it'll load, and it's an infection that's in a dog's saliva naturally, and he had to have a bunch of parts amputated. And this again is from Stand Up for Freedom. What's weird about this one is that I always grew up, and I really researched this, and they said that there was nothing in dog saliva that would transfer to humans. I think that the species border is weaker in this timeline, but they used to even say that a dog's saliva was very clean and antibiotic because it had antibiotic functions in it, and there were no germs that could pass to humans, so it was considered very clean. I've been seeing a lot of things in the last few years about diseases that come from dogs and cats. We just didn't have that so much, especially not dogs. So it's just weird. All right, that's that one. All right. I'm just going to see what you guys are up to. Hopefully it's doing all right. It looks like my stream is not very good quality today. Image search, purple leaves on trees. Smoke tree. All right, well, these kind of burgundy leaves, I'm familiar with the plum trees have these. I think that's that Japanese maple has those. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking at. All right, now these ones are not leaves. I know what these are. This is a jacaranda. And I've been seeing that one make the rounds as an ME. And it may well be, but these are not leaves. The jacaranda drops all its leaves in the winter if it's a little bit cold. And then sometimes it will bloom before the leaves come. So these are actually purple blooms. And they are a beautiful tree. I have known about these since the 90s because I lived in LA and they have a lot of these there. They also have them in San Diego. And I actually loved them so much that I planted one in my yard here. So I have one of these. So I know them really well. They do really well. They're great trees for San Diego region. Very hardy. They just need a little trimming on so that their growth structure is not too bad. But they're very drought tolerant. In fact, I don't water mine. After a few years, it survives on its own. So nice tree. But yeah, this one was making the rounds. I believe it was Life Matrix. He did not remember any purple, just the purpleness of it. He did not remember it ever being here, and he's a San Diego native, I guess. And so I agree that would be really weird if he never saw these, because there are some years when they're just spectacular, and they do bloom for a number of weeks. So there are years when some of the streets in San Diego are just purple like crazy. So it may well be an ME for him. For me, I've had these since the 90s. And before the 90s, I lived further north where these don't do well. So I would not have seen them. So I can't comment before the 90s. But when I moved to LA and I saw them, one of the things I said was, if I get a house, I'm planting one of those. So there you have it. I don't know if that's the one we're supposed to look at. Okay, again, this one is, I'll check it, but I am almost positive this is another one in bloom. A lot of trees around here drop all their leaves. Then in the spring they bloom. And then the leaves come in. So, and this one I believe is the fall color where they turn red, drop their leaves. This one, those I had. I think that's a maple, Japanese maple. Some of the Japanese maples are really beautiful. I would plant them, but they do not do well here. It's a little too hot and dry. This one's interesting. So this one is redder than I am familiar with. I think we're looking at some... It's hard to tell how much this image is manipulated, but it looks like these are all Japanese maples. They might be a little more extreme in this timeline. This is flowering again here. Okay, I don't know if I covered it, but the biggest cave found in Philippines is ginormous. Yeah, the monster caves with their own weather system, those are new for me. Definitely did not have anything like that, and I'm big into caves. That giant Chinese one I saw about 2 years ago. Dollar sign has one bar. Yeah, that's an older ME. Trains had jet engines in them. No, I don't think I covered that one. Turbojet train. Huh. That's interesting. Yeah, no, I've not heard of that one. look, look at it. You would never forget that if you saw it. That one's a good one. By Kyokuk Monte. I don't know if you found that one, but it is hilarious. 1970, the USSR developed a high-speed laboratory rail car turbojet plane. You know, maglev was the biggest deal for me. I don't remember there being a jet on those. That's funny. Because there's not much info on it. Turbojet train. What year was this supposed to be? It looks like an old photo. 1966 was the first attempt. The Bud Rail diesel car. Then the 1970s. No, I'm really suspicious about that one. I mean, obviously I can't know everything, but that one is extra funny. Look at that. I don't know what to say. Crazy jet engine powered train, 1966. Let's just look at a few more images because those are funny. Look, there's a bunch of them. Wow, look at that old one. Those look really funny. What the heck is that thing? That must be something. That looks like it's an old VW bus. Oh, yeah, no, I've never heard of those. Yeah, interesting. I don't know if did I cover the red leaves ones good? Oh, you found that one. That's a good find on those jet engine ones. Yeah, there's just so many weird things in this timeline. Not enough time to get everything done now. Yeah, the time is going so quickly now. I mean, it's worse than last year. It really is. One hour mark. Okay, I'm actually doing pretty good today. I've only been on an hour and 10 minutes. Ugh, what the heck? Shoot, this advertisement on the new computer clicked close. How do you get rid of this thing? Trying to sell me antivirus, of course. Japanese trident maple. Japanese trident maple. That's what we're looking at. All right, let's check it out. These ones all look like the colors I'm familiar with, to be honest. At least for my timeline. I'm pretty heavy into trees, and I've always loved the Japanese maple. We actually had one when I was a child, but again, we see that everybody doesn't have the same timeline. I had a lot of interesting trees in my old timeline and rocks, but some of the other things not so much. So the Japanese maple has red leaves all the time. And this one might be a little bit image manipulated, but it's about right. I've always loved these, and I would plant them here in a minute, but they just don't do well in this region. Up north, where it's cooler, they're even a little bit. What happens is they survive, but the edges of their leaves are always crispy and burnt looking, and it's just not. They're just not loving it, so it's just not an ideal environment for them here. Okay, let's see where we are. Oh yeah, Cupid's not here. Oh, Cupid, you are here. I'm good. Just a bit sleepy these days. Yep. Cupid. These messages brought to you by Cupid, who's a patron on my channel. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, good find on the turbojet engines. Have not heard of that. Okay, this one was from Keill1, Keill1. Angry mutant green crabs are destroying everything in their path. Apparently they come from Nova Scotia. There's been a lot lately about these invasive species. I think we should keep an eye on it. Some of them, they say they're invasive at first. A lot of the ones they're saying suddenly invaded are MEs. Angry green crabs from Nova Scotia, angrier than their already ornery green cousins in Maine, are migrating south. So, apparently they're really aggressive and they just pinch the crap out of you. Anytime I went down to grab one, they went to grab me instead. One of them in particular would jump out of the water in its frenzy to attack. So apparently crabs are pretty crabby in this timeline, at least these green ones. I'm wondering if they'll get more green later. They're not very green right now, but it's something to keep an eye on. Also, when I was checking out this article, I then saw this, and this is also giant spider web stretches. It's supposed to be 1,000 feet across lagoon. So I did click on that, and here we go. This one's a big ME for me. I saw this a few years ago with these giant spider webs. And the first one, there was an art expedition that made it look like there was webbing all over these trees. And then about 6 months later, after the art exhibition that went fairly viral, there was a flood somewhere, and there was this giant web, and they were saying it was due to the flood, which I didn't really understand, because why would a flood cause spiders to make like a communal web? And it was all up in the trees at that time, sort of like this one here. But I didn't really understand that, and I was suspicious of it at the time because I already knew about the ME. So that was like less than 2 years ago, but close to 2 years. And since then, we've been seeing a lot of it. And first they blamed it on the flood, but now they're saying it's when there's good mating for like reproduction and mating, when the weather is good, they will do this communal web. So now the story is it's for mating and it's normal. The original story was that it was for some kind of flood response. So weird. There's not a lot of chit-chat on this one, but let's see. If the spiders are taking advantage of these conditions and are having a kind of party, shouldn't cause any damage. Wildlife experts say it's not uncommon for spiders to build massive nests for mating, especially when it's hot and humid towards the end of summer. Now that whole sentence is new spiel for me. They did not have the mating storyline last I checked. They certainly did not have it when I first saw these. So now supposedly it's some kind of high temperature response. Did anyone see there is an inordinate supply of 2013 and 2009 series bills? I'll have to check that. Now, you'd have to look into that because it may be that there are certain years where they printed a lot of money. And if the money printing was like 1s and 5s and 20s for that year, then, I mean, most of us probably don't have hundreds in our wallet, so... Record player in car is an Emmy for me. They had a record player in the car? I have not heard of that one. That's funny. No, I have not heard of that one. Oh, check that out. That did not, no. 45 RPM records in the highway hi-fi. In 1960... You know, that one, you know, you couldn't have your car jumping around with a record player. I mean, in my old timeline, if you just bumped it, it would cause it to skip. I can't really imagine you driving down the road. But apparently the timeline was better here with the tech, because the old record players, that bouncing, it wouldn't have worked. That's a trip. No, we didn't. I did not have... I did not have record players in cars. Look at that. It's like a joke. All right, let's get past the ads here. I just want to see the video. Look at that. Huh. Check it out. Okay, so yeah, pretty weird. Mini record players in the car. Yeah, that's an Emmy for me. How does the record not skip? Exactly. It looks like they've got something to kind of hold it down. This isn't the thing that just sets like a needle. But still, weird. It's like an early CD now. Just like the Scopatone video music. Yeah, the Scopatone, I did not know about that one either. That one is also very suspicious. Does anyone else feel that many tech companies are suddenly Japanese? I'm not sure about that one. I mean, that in my timeline, there were always a lot of Japanese tech companies, Sony, those kind of guys. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, so I can't really comment a lot on that. Ghost Shark. I think I've covered Ghost Shark before. They're getting weirder over time, as a lot of the sharks are. Yeah, they're just weirder. I'm pretty sure I covered those things before. The mouth is really weird on them. It might have been just for retcon, though. I can't remember. But yeah, see the mouth on those ghost sharks. It looks like they're getting this nub on the snout now. I do not remember that last time I checked. This is sticking out further and further now. It used to just come around like this, but now we've got this leading edge elbow here. So this one continues to change. Oh, platypus. Oh, is that a platy? I don't remember this part on the face here on these platypuses. I have to check that. So yeah, I think that this is this nose is, the fins are looking weirder. I don't remember these lines on the face either on these. See right in here. See what else we can find here. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, see these lines? I do not recall these lines. I think those are new. Okay, I'm not sure what's going on here. It's got this weird, looks like a little baby skull in its mouth. I don't know if that's some kind of weird teeth. But yeah, these fins have gotten bigger out here too. So yeah, they're not a new ME for me, but they continue to evolve. With the lining on the face, the hook has gotten more extreme. They look weirder and weirder. Definitely. Yeah, look. See, look at all the lines. That was not on there before. Definitely not. Oh, that one's moving, huh? These guys keep changing, getting weird, too. When they first came out, oops, go back. They just had a little nub, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger since then. Right. Oh, look at the coloration on that one. Australian ghost shark. Okay, looks like there's more than one ghost shark now. What's this thing? Because now they have Australian ghost shark. Let's just check and see how many ghost sharks. There was only one last time I checked. Let's see how many there are now. Once they start adding the additional words on there like that. Found for the first time in the northern hemisphere. Let's see. Okay, there's a horror story about them. For cartilaginous fish order, see chimera. Okay, so yes, there's multiple kinds now. At one time, a diverse and abundant group. Their closest living relatives are sharks. All right. So we have a giant, monstrous ton of ghost sharks now. Wow. So, yeah, a lot. You're never going to keep track of them once there's like 50 kinds. Wow. Okay. That's probably why I'm seeing all different images now. Oh, JW. Hey, how is it going? Okay, so we got ghost sharks. Oh, we got that one. Ah, we'll get to the... This is the thumbnail. Black hairy tongue. And this was by Bill Bird. Good find, Bill. So supposedly the papillae on your tongue can get long, and then for some reason they turn black and look like hair. Harmless oral condition that gives the tongue a dark furry appearance. The distinct look usually results from buildup of dead skin cells on many tiny projections of papillae on the surface of the tongue that contain taste buds. These papillae, which are longer than normal, can easily trap and be stained by bacteria, yeast, tobacco, food, or other substances. I just think that's weird. I mean, you've always got papillae. They never turn black until they get long. I don't see how they're going to trap that much food. I mean, that whole thing is just weird. And why would they get stained more when they're long when they don't get stained when they're short? Although black hairy tongue may look alarming, typically it doesn't cause any health problems and is usually painless. Black hairy tongue usually resolves by eliminating possible causes or contributing factors and practicing good oral hygiene. So, I mean, like, I don't get it. I don't even brush my tongue. I brush my teeth, and I don't get these. So, I don't know. The whole thing is just weird. Hairy fur. So, in this timeline, you can basically grow hair on your tongue almost. We'll run by that. They're kind of gross, so you probably don't need to watch them that long. But there you go. Black hairy tongue. Okay. Did that one. All right, this one is an older ME, brought up by Julie Holcomb. It's an older one for me. So basically in this timeline, they have this thing called thundersnow, when it snows and then there's thunder. Weirdly, they never say anything about the lightning. I mean, you would guess that there should be lightning. You would think that there would be lightning, but so that's an ME for me. There was not thunder snow. And about 2 years ago, this showed up, and there was quite a number of viral clips about some weather guy getting all excited because he heard thunder snow for the first time. And they didn't go into the details, but now they're saying these specific things happen near Great Lakes. The leading edge of a cold front or warm front that can either form in a winter environment or runs into cool air. Heavy synoptic snowstorm, vertical mixing, or lake effect. So anyway, there's this thing called thunder snow now. Yeah, thunder snow. I don't know if we can find any video on it. You're just basically going to see snow and you're going to hear thunder. All right, thunderstorm montage. I'm going to have to change it so you can hear. Let me see if this will work here. Desktop. I'm going to have to make it so you can hear the desktop audio. Take off the sound.
Oh, yes! Yes!
All right,
yes! We got it! Oh, yes! Yes!
This is interesting.
Yes! We got it, baby! We got it! We got it!
I saw this video 2 years ago, and there was no
we got it!
light on
Yes!
the video.
Listen to that!
This
Listen
is the
to
same
that!
video, but look,
Oh, baby!
they show the light.
Oh, yes!
Yeah.
Yes!
That's
yes!
changed.
We got it,
That's
baby!
changed. It
We
was just
got
the
it!
sound.
We got
I
it!
saw this
Woo! Woo! We got it! God! The winds have really picked up and through here. And there's another one! That's number... You gotta be kidding!
All right, hopefully you could hear that. Anyway, yes, that's a big change for me. When this first came out, there was no light. So now we have the light. Very interesting. That's how it sneaks in. I think I'm going to turn this off just in case. All right, back. All right, weird. So yeah, that one's that makes me even more suspicious that it's an ME because it keeps changing like that. But I guess everything changes, so who knows? Now we'll see commercials for tongue razors. Yeah, you know, the recent years they've been saying to brush your tongue, and I'm like, what? But you know, now they're saying there's no evidence that flossing does anything. So there's another one. Where's my wish-granting tree? Yeah. When details are added to the Wikipedia page, check the history. Most pages have things added, like, if you look at the edit date, it'll be within a few days or sometimes a week or two, but there's always recent edits, according to Wiki. Now the Romans used Yeah, VIII instead of IX. Yes, that was my video. I broke that one as far as I know. Okay. What's next on here? So that was good. See, I check old MEs, but they've got new aspects, because when I saw this video that went viral 2 years ago, there was no light, and I thought a lot about that, and now the light is there. So they keep changing. They're very sneaky that way. Not that one. I think I just have this one left. Got that one. Yeah, this is the last one. Ink, Kylo. Okay. So apparently now you really can be tongue-tied, literally tongue-tied. There's an actual thing called being tongue-tied. And there's a viral video. Now this one kind of ties in a lot, pardon the pun, with recent MEs, where a lot of people remember that you used to have a risk of swallowing your tongue. And they would tell you that if somebody was having an epileptic seizure, to tip their head forward to make sure they didn't swallow their tongue. Now they're saying tip your head forward to keep your airway open, but there used to be this danger of you swallowing your tongue, and that used to be a method of possible suicide. You could swallow your tongue. But now the tongue is anchored down to the bottom of the mouth, and you can't swallow it. And it's weird because Mandela Effects had dug up some residual where there was an actual story that this guy, I think he was a football player, saved the life of another football player because that football player had gotten injured and swallowed his tongue, and this guy came in and got his fingers in there and pulled his tongue out and saved him. And that storyline, that news story was still there. So basically, he was lauded as a hero. In this timeline, it would be, you can't swallow your tongue. Because they have this, they're calling it a frenulum or something like that. Frenulum, yes, that ties down your tongue. Well, apparently, if this is too tied down, you are tongue-tied, and you can't speak properly. And so now there's this viral video of this child who they thought could not speak and had some kind of speech impediment, and then finally somebody noticed he was tongue-tied. So they do a surgery where they loosen out your tongue, and then once that happened, he was able to speak right away. So anyways, just interesting, since the tongue used to be loose, but now you really can be tongue-tied. We all have been sick. We just recently shifted again. Bubbles, bubbles. I was really sick for a while. This last week, I feel pretty good, though. So, knock on wood. I was sick for a while on that last shift. And I don't know. I've just been having a lot of bad luck lately. Things are just refusing to come together. I mean, not like I'm going to die or anything, but it just hasn't been a real good environment for me lately. Just, it's like kind of a bad mojo shift or something. So I haven't been loving it, that's for sure. Seems like a lot of people around me are going through a lot of stuff too. Just, fires, damage to the house, all that kind of stuff. I had a family member that was born with horns. Huh. Seems to be a lot more of that weird stuff in this timeline. Do you know of anyone who has been back to their timeline? No. I'm not sure if those timelines are still there. I can't say, but I really wonder. I mean, you think about it. Every time we shift, you feel really sick and everything. And there's been so many anatomy changes. Like our bodies so different now. I mean, it would probably take us years and years to shift back because I'm guessing that each shift is hard. So I don't think you can go back to your old body at all. That's just my theory, but I don't know of anybody who's been able to reverse any of those anatomy changes. Sometimes an individual single thing like Fruit Loop spelling will flip-flop back and forth, but you're not in your old timeline. So I think it might be combining timelines, personally. That is my personal favorite. But also I think that there's changes because it does look like there's some kind of download thing that goes on too. So I don't know. I mean, I can't say for sure. The only reason I don't think that it is just changes and downloads is because everybody has different past memories. If we all came from the same Earth, then we should all have either the same old memory or a memory of the current time, because we got some downloads. So there should be just those two versions. And it was more like that originally when I first learned of the ME 2 years ago, is that most of us remembered the same MEs, and there were only a few things where there was more than one version. One of those was Berenstein bears. Some of us remembered Bernstein bears, Bernstein bears. And that was me way back in the 70s. It was Bernstein bears. And since then, I didn't really look at it because I don't have kids. So I did not notice that it had changed to Berenstein and then Berenstain. So that was one of the few that had multiple variations. But now I just see so many more variations. It just seems like there's so many more timelines. And so that's why I'm fond of the timeline theory. There's just too many divergent memories now. But, you know, who the heck knows? I don't know. I'm still just guessing. Yeah, it used to be that if someone was having a seizure, you'd put a spoon in the mouth. Yeah, because if you stuck your finger in there, he could bite it. So, yeah, nobody has been back to their timeline that I've ever heard. There are a few people who claim to be traveling around the weird timelines, but, there are just a few people with prominent YouTube channels, or like one person, really. And no regular people that I talk to. And, I see a lot of people on Redcon. I mean, there's like over 10,000 members. Of course, they're not all active, but... Just started to not wake up from coughing fits. Just started to not wake up from coughing fits. I don't think I've ever not woke up while coughing. Huh. The man in the moon changed for me, and the rabbit hole keeps deeper and deeper since that night. After you get sick, does it feel like your mind is racing for some days? What I notice is right after I'm done being sick, I kind of have this surge of vitality, like something's cleared through for like one day, but then it kind of backslides a little bit for a few more days after that. But the really big one that I've noticed is every time I get sick, every time I have a hard shift, then, like, for instance, you get a sore throat, then your voice sounds weird. But what happens, and what's really been happening for me, is that my voice does not go all the way back to how it was. It's getting lower and lower and lower and lower. It's really like I don't even recognize my voice now. When I open my mouth, it just seems strange to hear that low voice. And my voice used to carry a lot better. It was a lot more high-pitched. And now I find that when I talk, people are saying, what, a lot? Because I'm just not, my voice doesn't project. It's a lot lower now. It's just weird. Just weird. I'm really not used to people not hearing me, because I used to be pretty loud. I feel like I still am loud, but apparently I'm not, because people are not hearing what I say. It's just weird. So anyways, well, I'm pretty much done with my stuff. I'm just going to look over and see if I've missed anything to look up. If you guys have anything new you want to add, now's the time, because what drives me nuts is I can give you a pile of evidence for like 5 different causes. Yeah, you know, that's the thing. And it's not just with Mandela effect. It's almost any theory out there now. If you look, you can find evidence for it, and often pretty good evidence. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but politics, both sides find all this stuff to support their sides. And some of the, no matter what conspiracy you look at, there's a bunch of evidence for it. A lot of cases, even though that some of the conspiracies really conflict with other ones, they both will have a ton of evidence. It's like whatever you look for, you find in this timeline or something. So that's something weird for me. I mean, it used to be you just look at all the evidence and there would be one thing that seemed the most likely. But now there's just so much weird stuff. Yeah, the man in the moon changed. It's the rabbit in the moon now. I actually talked to people and they've never heard of the man in the moon. They've heard of the rabbit in the moon. Bee Bears was my first and is still my number 1. Yeah, for me it's Arctica, and the anatomy changes are huge for me. Some of the animal changes are ridiculous. Because, I mean, even if you argue that all these animals I never knew about, even the existing animals have changed drastically in some cases. Rhinos with the 2 horns now. There was only one kind of rhino before. There was only one kind of giraffe. The color patterns on the giraffe are drastically different. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of a lot of animals that there was only one of. And there's a lot more coloration changes on animals. More spines, more poison. I'm still pretty congested, and this would be week 3, Autumn Nichols. Yes, the last illness took me more than a week to get the congestion out, even after I was feeling pretty good. It just settled in the lungs. I've actually never really had that with a sickness before, where it settled in the lungs like that. And even though I felt better, I was coughing up congestion out of my lungs for like at least a week. It was weird. I'm not used to it. And then it would hurt down in here where I was coughing out the congestion. I've never experienced that before. The big question is, would you know if we did go back, so many things change? I think so. I would have a whole different body if I went back to my old timeline. I mean, and that the geology was totally different back there. I've even noticed changes in my yard, like just little changes in the shape, and I think that I would notice. If it suddenly went back though, like suddenly, I just don't think we can suddenly go back, because each shift is a little bit, and each shift we get sick. There's so many effects from just little jumps. I just don't see, I mean, I could be wrong, but I just don't see how you could suddenly jump all the way back. I think it'd probably just kill you, would be my guess. I mean, it's a wild guess, but it just seems like you can't jump too fast at once. You have to go bit by bit. Clyde Ewing, so they don't swallow tongue. Yeah, you don't swallow your tongue in this timeline. They said there's a few people who don't have the frenulum, and they can actually swallow their tongue and then like spit it back out, and they're like kind of weird people, but they don't choke on it. They have control of it. There's video online. It's kind of gross looking, but so even when they swallow it, they're not choking on it. Okay, well, anyways, it's 1:45. So it's getting about that magic time again. Scott Balo having a lot of trouble breathing last. You might want to try some decongestants that really help for me. Just the over-the-counter stuff. I also, for myself, tried a Primatene Mist inhaler, which works great for me, but they don't make those anymore. I have an old stash of them. They stopped making them, they said, due to the ozone layer, but I have a stash of those. But also the tablets, you can still get those, and those are very effective, I find, for congestion. I used to have asthma, that's why I use them. And then this last time when I got the congestion, I just was like, pull out the old asthma medicine, and it was great. It really helped me breathe. So I would definitely suggest you try, consider trying that. I mean, obviously I'm not a doctor, but... Yeah, the anatomy changes are the big freaky. Well, that's... Yeah, I think that one was the one that really freaked me out initially. I mean, I was freaked out by Arctica, but then Arctica's way somewhere far away, but the body is right here in me, you know. So that was... somehow it doesn't bother me as much, the anatomy ones, though. I think because maybe... I mean, they did it first, but now it's like I can't really see them in there. I mean, I see it online, but I don't see there are indicators on the outside, but they're not really obvious. So I don't know. I don't know if that's why, but also they seem to be upgrades, so that kind of puts me in a good mood about them. I can find similar videos, but not the video that taught me about it. Yeah, if there was videos out there that are contradicted by the current reality, like the things that are now ME, a lot of times they'll disappear. I mean, pretty much always in my experience. We see that a lot on Retconned. If there is a long thread about an ME and then the ME changes, that thread will either be altered or it will be completely gone. Anyway, yeah, I do suggest you try decongestants. At least for me, they really work. Since the effect, I no longer have asthma or cat allergies. Yeah, you know, I had actually got rid of it when I gave up wheat. And it was like that first day even. And then after the course of a few weeks, I almost had no asthma. And then after 3 months, it was like completely gone. But now if I eat wheat again, it doesn't come back. So I'm still not eating it for the most part, but I'm not sure what's going on with that. I mean, I really don't know what to say. The asthma's gone and good riddance. And the allergies went when the asthma went. But, I mean, was the wheat just an excuse for the ME? I don't know. It's kind of confusing. I can't find the video that taught me about the strange color combinations that you can see. It's not in my history or anything. Are you talking about seeing the impossible colors? I think we talked about that a little bit last week. If you look up seeing impossible colors, you will find something. It may not be your original one, but... Yeah, I feel like we all had the same flu that came from some hole that coughs on his hands. And still, yeah, they always said that these flus spread around the world like lightning like this. You really got to wonder if they just come up like a lot of these new animals. I really just don't trust the world to be the cause and effect world that I once believed in. I now am very suspicious about this stuff. Especially stuff that's kind of hard to imagine. I don't know, but how much of the world is really based and functioning as conventional thought assumes it is? I think that's a really big question. Okay, anyways, I think we're pretty much done. So I am going to get ready to sign out. Looks like the new computer is working decently. Even the old computer is working pretty good today. So hopefully it keeps up like that. Tiny little cheap thing, but at least it doesn't crash every 5 seconds. All right, so anyway, this is Eva signing off for Once Upon a Timeline. Special thanks to QB for sponsoring my channel, and thank you everyone for coming.